The dying light of 3 suns painted the observation deck in shades of amber and crimson as Kayla 7 watched her homeworld burn. Through the quantum link display, she could see the massive shadow ships hanging over Zela Minor like dark clouds. They were feeding again. The research vessel Harmony's Edge drifted silently at the edge of the system, its crew of 47 scientists and explorers frozen in horror. None of them had ever seen death on such a scale. The Zelani had known peace. For over 3,000 cycles, war was something they read about in ancient texts, a relic from their primitive past. "The city of Venaka has gone dark," whispered Dr. Moth 3 from his station. His 4 delicate hands trembled as he adjusted the sensors. That's 12 million souls." Kayla pressed her palm against the cool metal wall, feeling the ship's gentle vibrations. Her people lived in harmony with their technology, their ships grown rather than built, their cities breathing with the rhythm of life itself. Now she watched those cities die. "Report from Patrol Fleet 7, announced Communications Officer, Ren 9. Her voice cracked. The Vorthak ships are not responding to any communication attempts, they're just consuming." The Vorthak. Even their name sent chills through Kayla's slender frame. 3 months ago, they were just stories from the Outer Rim. Ships that appeared without warning took everything and left empty worlds behind. The Confederation Council had sent diplomatic vessels to establish contact. None had returned. Now, the Vorthak swarm had reached the heart of Zelani space. 3 worlds had already fallen silent. The remaining 4 colonies were under siege, their defense fleets no match for the biomechanical monstrosities that seemed to heal faster than they could be damaged. "Kayla 7, called Captain Gen Prime from the command center. Council Elder Thane Prime wishes to speak with you." Kayla made her way through the ship's organic corridors, her bare feet silent on the living floor. The Harmony's Edge was designed for deep space research, its biohull capable of sustaining itself for years between resupply missions. It was never meant to be a refugee vessel, but that's what it had become. The holographic image of Thane Prime flickered with interference. The Elder's usually pristine white fur was matted with stress, his large eyes sunken with exhaustion. Behind him, Kayla could see the council chambers on Zela Prime filled with panicking officials. "Kayla 7, Thane Prime began, his voice heavy with defeat. "Your research into extinct civilizations, have you found any reference to species that might help us?" Kayla's heart sank. She was a xenobiologist, not a warrior. Her specialty was studying the remains of dead civilizations, cataloging their final messages and learning from their mistakes. She had never expected her knowledge to be humanity's last hope. "Elder," she said carefully, "most civilizations we've studied fell to natural disasters, resource depletion, or their own internal conflicts. None faced anything like the Vorthak." "Surely someone has survived such an attack before," pressed another voice from the council chambers. "In all your research, all those dead worlds—" Kayla closed her eyes, searching her memory. Thousands of archaeological sites, millions of records, countless stories of civilizations that had risen and fallen across the galaxy. Most had died, quietly, their people fading into history. But there were a few, a very few, that had left different kinds of messages. "There are references," she said slowly, "in some of the oldest archives, stories about what the ancient texts called Deathworld species." The council chamber fell silent except for the distant sounds of emergency alerts. "Deathworld species?" Thane Prime leaned forward. "Worlds so hostile that they forged their inhabitants into something different. The archives describe beings evolved under extreme conditions. Constant danger, lethal weather, aggressive predators. Most scholars consider them myths. Where are these death worlds supposed to exist?" Kayla's hands moved over her research tablet, calling up files she had dismissed as folklore just days ago. The coordinates are fragmentary, but they all point to the same general region, beyond the outer rim in what we call the dead zone. No one has explored that far. An explosion lit up the quantum link display. Another Zelani city had gone dark. "Elder," Captain Gen Prime interrupted, "we're receiving reports that the main Vorthak fleet is moving toward Zela Prime. Estimated arrival in 6 standard days." The color drained from Thane Prime's face. Zela Prime was the capital world, home to 8 billion Zelani. If it fell, their civilization would be extinct within a generation. "Prepare the archives protocol," Thane Prime said quietly. Kayla felt her blood freeze. The archives protocol was reserved for the end of everything. It would broadcast their entire cultural database, their history, their science, everything they were as a species, into deep space. A final message from a dying race. Elder, surely there's still hope. Look, around you, child. Thane Prime's image flickered again. Our fleets are scattered, our world's defenseless. The Vorthak consume everything in their path. In 6 days, there will be no more Zilani Confederation. Over the next 4 hours, Kayla watched her people prepare for extinction. The greatest minds of their civilization worked frantically to compress their entire heritage into a single transmission. Art, music, literature, scientific discoveries, philosophical teachings, everything that made them who they were. As the hours passed, more reports came in. The outer colonies had gone silent. Patrol fleets reported Vorthak bioships massing near Zella Prime. The defense platforms around their homeworld were already under attack. Transmission ready, reported the communications officer. All frequencies, maximum power. The message will reach every corner of known space. Thane Prime stood in the center of the council chambers, looking older than his 800 years. Around him, the greatest leaders of 7 species waited for his final order as their leader. Citizens of the galaxy, Thane Prime began, his voice steady despite everything. This is Elder Thane Prime of the Zilani Confederation. Our worlds are dying. The Vorthak swarm consumes everything in its path, and we cannot stop them. Kayla watched tears run down the Elder's face. We send this message not in anger but in hope. Somewhere among the stars there may be others who can learn from our fate. We include our complete archives, our history, our science, our mistakes. Perhaps someone, somewhere can use this knowledge to survive what we could not. The Elder paused, composing himself. To any who receive this message, beware the Vorthak. They show no mercy, accept no surrender, take no prisoners. They exist only to consume. If you encounter them, do not try to negotiate. Do not try to understand them. Simply run. Another pause. In the background, alarms wailed as more defense platforms fell silent. But if you cannot run, if you are as trapped as we are, then fight. Fight with everything you have. Fight for your children, your culture, your right to exist. We could not win this battle, but perhaps you can. Thane Prime looked directly into the transmission camera. This is our final gift to the galaxy. Learn from us. Live where we could not. And if the impossible happens, if someone out there has the strength to face the Vorthak, remember that the Zilani died hoping for your victory. The transmission ended. Across the galaxy, automated listening posts began receiving the signal. Most would dismiss it as another refugee broadcast. But in a small monitoring station orbiting a yellow star in what the Zilani called the dead zone, human technicians stared at their screens in amazement. On the research vessel, Kayla 7 stood, alone on the observation deck, watching the lights of her civilization fade one by one. In her hand she held a small data crystal containing everything she had learned about Deathworld species. It was probably useless now, but she kept it anyway. Behind her, Captain Jen Prime approached quietly. Kayla, he said softly. Long range. Sensors are detecting something strange. She turned, hope flickering in her chest. The listening post at grid reference 847 Alpha is showing increased activity. Multiple ships launching from the dead zone. Kayla's hearts began racing. The dead zone was where her research pointed, where the ancient texts claimed the Deathworld species might exist. How many ships? She asked. The captain checked his tablet. Difficult to tell. The energy signatures are unusual, but Kayla, they're heading this way. For the first time in days, Kayla 7 allowed herself to smile. Perhaps Thane Prime's message had found the right ears after all. Admiral Sarah Chen stared at the holographic display floating above her command table, watching the alien transmission for the 7th time. The bridge of the Indomitable buzzed with quiet activity as her officers worked to decode every piece of information from the desperate message. Admiral, called Lieutenant Commander Park from the communications station. Xenolinguistics confirms the translation is accurate. This Zilani Confederation is facing complete extinction. Sarah nodded, grimly. In her 30 years of military service, she had seen plenty of desperate situations. But this was different. This was first contact with an alien species, and their opening message was a death cry. What do we know about these Vorthak? She asked. Dr. Elizabeth Harrison, the fleet's chief xenobiologist, stepped forward with her tablet. Based on the data included in the transmission, they appear to be biomechanical hybrids. Their ships are partially alive, capable of self-repair and growth. They consume entire worlds, not just resources but the actual planetary biomass. A galactic plague, muttered Commander Torres from the tactical station. And they're heading toward human space eventually. Sarah walked to the main viewport looking out at the stars. Humanity had been exploring space for barely 2 centuries. They had found dozens of worlds suitable for colonization, built a small but growing interstellar empire. They had always wondered if they would find alien life. Now they had their answer. "Show me the tactical analysis," she ordered. The hologram shifted to display ship movements and battle reports. Sarah watched Zilani defense fleets engage the Vorthak bioships. It was a massacre. The alien vessels seemed to absorb energy weapon fire, healing damage almost as quickly as it was inflicted. Conventional explosives barely scratched their organic hulls. "Their defensive capabilities are impressive," admitted Torres. "But Admiral, look at their offensive patterns." Sarah studied the recordings. The Vorthak fought with perfect coordination but no creativity. They attacked in predictable waves using the same tactics against every target. Their strength was overwhelming, but they showed no adaptation, no learning. They fight like a swarm. Intelligence, she mused. No individual thought, just following programmed behaviors. "That's our assessment as well," Dr. Harrison agreed. "The Zilani cultural database describes them as having lost individual consciousness generations ago. They exist only to consume and expand." A communication alert interrupted their discussion. The face of Admiral Marcus Webb appeared on the main screen, transmitted from Earth Defense Command. "Admiral Chen," Webb began without ceremony, "you are ordered to withdraw your fleet to defensive positions around the Sol system immediately." Sarah felt her jaw tighten. Webb was a politician in uniform, more concerned with treaties and territories than the reality of space warfare. "Sir, with respect, we're talking about a threat that could consume the entire galaxy." "The Zilani are aliens," Webb cut her off. "Not our responsibility. Our duty is to protect human worlds, not get involved in alien wars." "This isn't a war, Admiral, it's genocide. And if we don't act now, that swarm will reach human space within 50 years. Webb's expression hardened. "You have your orders, Admiral. Return to Sol immediately." The transmission ended, leaving Sarah staring at a blank screen. Around her, the bridge crew waited in uncomfortable silence. They had all heard the Zilani transmission, seen the recordings of entire worlds being devoured. They knew what was at stake. "Admiral," Dr. Harrison said quietly, "there's something else in the Zilani archives. References to what they call Deathworld species." Sarah turned back to the hologram as Harrison called up the relevant files. According to their research, there are worlds so hostile that they forge their inhabitants into something more extraordinary. Beings evolved under constant threat, adapted for survival in impossible conditions. "You think they mean Earth?" asked Commander Torres. Dr. Harrison nodded. "Earth fits their description perfectly. Extreme weather, aggressive predators, frequent natural disasters, deadly diseases. Most worlds in the galaxy are garden paradises, compared to our homeworld." Sarah thought about humanity's history. Wars that lasted centuries, plagues that killed millions, ice ages, volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts. Other species had evolved in peace and plenty. Humans had evolved in hell. "Show me our fleet composition," she ordered. The tactical display shifted to show the human ships under her command. 50 vessels in total, ranging from massive battleships to converted cargo haulers. Many were originally mining ships, built to tear apart asteroids in the vacuum of space. Others were colony transports designed to survive years in deep space with minimal support. "Admiral," Torres said carefully, "if we engage the Vorthak, we'll be revealing humanity's existence to the galaxy. First contact under the worst possible circumstances." Sarah studied the positions of her ships, thinking about the choice before her. She could follow orders, return to Earth, and wait for the Vorthak to eventually find them. Or she could act on her own authority and try to save an alien civilization. "Commander Torres, what's your assessment of our combat capabilities against the Vorthak?" Torres consulted his displays. "Unknown, ma'am. Our weapons are kinetic-based rather than energy. Railguns, missiles, explosive charges. The kind of hardware designed to break apart asteroids and space debris. Industrial equipment as weapons," Sarah mused. "Dr. Harrison, you've studied the Vorthak tactical data. What would happen if we hit their bioships with mining charges instead of energy weapons?" The xenobiologist's eyes widened. "Their healing appears to work against energy damage and small projectiles, but massive physical trauma, Explosive decompression that might overwhelm their repair systems. Sarah made her decision. All ships, this is Admiral Chen. Prepare for combat deployment to the Zilani system. We're going to make first contact the hard way. Admiral, Commander Torres said urgently. Admiral Webb specifically ordered. Admiral Webb can court-martial me later, Sarah interrupted. Right now there's a civilization about to die and we might be the only ones who can save them. She activated the ship-wide communication system. Attention, all hands. This is Admiral Chen. In 30 minutes we'll be jumping to assist an alien species under attack by a hostile force. This will be humanity's first combat action against non-human enemies. We don't know what we'll find when we get there, but I do know this. We're going in as representatives of Earth and everything we stand for. Sarah paused, thinking about the words that would define humanity's entry into galactic affairs. The enemy we're facing consumes entire worlds. They show no mercy, take no prisoners, accept no surrender. They are everything we've ever fought against in our own history. Extinction, annihilation, the end of hope itself. She looked around the bridge at her officers, seeing determination replacing uncertainty. We're going to show them what humans do when faced with impossible odds. We're going to show them what a death world creates when it needs defenders. All ships, prepare for jump. The fleet began moving into formation. 50 human vessels preparing to face an enemy that had destroyed multiple star systems. In the depths of space, ancient mining equipment hummed to life, converted into weapons of war. Dr. Harrison approached Sarah's command station. Admiral, there's one more thing from the Zilani archives, a single line that appears in several different texts. What does it say? When faced with death world species, do not attempt to fight them, attempt to survive them. Sarah smiled grimly. Too bad nobody sent that message to the Vorthak. The jump countdown reached 0, and the human fleet disappeared into hyperspace, carrying Earth's answer to the galaxy's cry for help. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Nethka system to find 3 massive bioships hanging over the colony world like hungry vultures. Each Vorthak vessel was the size of a small moon, its organic hull pulsing with veins of bioluminescent energy. Harvester tendrils stretched down from orbit, pulling streams of atmospheric gases and surface material into gaping feeding ports. Jesus Christ, whispered Lieutenant Park from his sensor station. Those things are eating the planet's atmosphere. Admiral Chen studied the tactical display with cold calculation. The Zilani defense platforms around Nethka had been reduced to drifting debris. A few surviving patrol ships fled toward the outer system, their hulls scarred by bioplasma burns. Commander Torres, target analysis? Each bioship shows massive energy signatures, ma'am. Dense organic armor, multiple redundant systems. But Admiral, they're focused entirely on harvesting operations. No combat formations, no defensive screening. Chen nodded. The Vorthak had become so accustomed to easy victories that they weren't even trying to protect themselves. All ships, this is Admiral Chen. We're going in hard and fast. Mining ships, prepare your excavation charges. Military vessels, load kinetic penetrators. Target their feeding apparatus first. If we can disrupt their harvesting, maybe we can get their attention. On the converted asteroid miner Persistence, Commander Marcus Torres checked his weapon systems one final time. The ship had originally been designed to crack apart space rocks for their mineral content. Now those same tools would be used against living vessels the size of cities. Mining team to bridge, reported Chief Engineer Rodriguez over the comm. Excavation charges are loaded and ready. We've got enough firepower to level a mountain range. Let's hope it's enough, Torres replied. All hands prepare for combat. We're about to find out if human mining equipment can hurt something that's part spaceship, part animal. The human fleet accelerated toward the Vorthak bioships in a formation that would have horrified any traditional naval commander. Mining vessels led the charge, followed by converted cargo haulers loaded with makeshift weapons. The few actual military ships brought up the rear, their officers still unsure whether their human-designed weapons would have any effect on alien targets. First bioship coming into range, reported the weapons officer aboard the Persistence. Torres watched the massive organic vessel grow larger on his screen. Up close, he could see the intricate details of its biomechanical systems. Curved ribs of living bone formed the hull structure. Clusters of what looked like eyes or sensors dotted the surface. The harvester tendrils were actually extensions of the ship's digestive system, breaking down planetary matter into usable nutrients. Fire, Torres ordered. The mining charges erupted from the Persistence in a cloud of explosive death. Each charge was designed to create maximum fragmentation and pressure waves, perfect for breaking apart solid rock. Against the soft organic hull of the bioship, the effect was devastating. Entire sections of the alien vessel ruptured, spraying biological fluids into space. The harvester tendrils whipped frantically as the creature ship's nervous system registered massive trauma. For the first time in its existence, the Vorthak bioship experienced something it had no programming to handle. Genuine damage that couldn't be quickly repaired. "Direct hit," shouted Rodriguez from engineering. "We're causing massive structural damage." Across the fleet, other mining ships opened fire with similar results. The Vorthak bioships reeled under the assault, their organic hulls no match for weapons designed to destroy asteroids. But they were learning. The second bioship turned away from its harvesting operations and oriented toward the human fleet. Weapon ports opened along its flanks, revealing bioplasma cannons that had destroyed a dozen Zilani fleets. "Incoming fire," Torres warned his crew. The bioplasma bolts struck the Persistence with enough energy to vaporize a normal spacecraft, but the mining vessel had been built to operate in the vacuum of space, surrounded by debris and radiation from asteroid explosions. Its thick armor plating and redundant systems absorbed the impact. "Shields down to 60%, reported the damage control officer. "But we're still fighting." Torres smiled grimly. The Vorthak were used to enemies that folded under their first attack. They had never faced anything built by a species that expected everything to try to kill them. Meanwhile, aboard the research vessel Harmony's Edge, Kayla 7 watched the battle with amazement. The human ships fought like nothing she had ever seen. When damaged, they didn't retreat for repairs. Instead, they kept fighting, using backup systems and emergency protocols to maintain combat effectiveness. "Captain," she called to Gen Prime, "we need to get closer. I need to document this." "Keela, those are warships. We're researchers. Those are Deathworlders," she corrected him. "This might be our only chance to observe them in combat." Harmony's Edge moved carefully toward the battle zone, its sensors recording everything. Kayla watched a human vessel take a direct hit that would have destroyed any Zilani ship. Instead of exploding, emergency bulkheads sealed the damaged sections, while crew members worked to restore function. Some of them were operating in vacuum, wearing only minimal protective suits.
"How are they surviving in space without full environmental gear?" asked Dr. Moth 3. Keela consulted her xenobiology references. According to the archives, Deathworld species develop extreme environmental resistance. They might be able to survive brief exposure to vacuum.
On her screen, she watched human engineers working on the exterior of a damaged ship, welding hull breaches while enemy fire exploded around them. It was insane. It was impossible. It was working. The battle turned when Commander Torres implemented what he called the ramming solution. The Persistence, too damaged to continue fighting conventionally, made a direct attack run on the largest bioship. "All hands, brace for impact," Torres announced. "We're going to show these aliens what happens when you threaten someone under human protection." The mining vessel slammed into the bioship's harvester array at full acceleration. The impact sent shockwaves through both vessels, but the human ship's reinforced frame held together long enough for Torres to detonate the remaining mining charges inside the alien vessel's body. The explosion tore the bioship apart from within. Massive sections of organic hull drifted away, leaking atmosphere and biological fluids. The creature ship's death screams echoed across multiple frequencies as its nervous system collapsed. The remaining two bioships immediately ceased their harvesting operations and began withdrawing toward the edge of the system. They had no programming for dealing with prey that fought back effectively. Admiral Chen opened a communication channel to the fleeing Vorthak vessels. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the human fleet. You are no longer welcome in this system. Withdraw, immediately, or face complete destruction." There was no response, but the bioships continued their retreat. "Admiral," reported Commander Torres from his damaged ship, "long-range sensors are detecting massive energy signatures from the direction of Zella Prime. It looks like the main Vorthak fleet is massing for a major assault." Chen nodded. This had been just a scouting force. The real battle was still to come. "All ships, begin rescue operations for Zilani survivors. Dr. Harrison, prepare for first contact protocols. We're about to meet our new allies face to face." On the Harmony's Edge, Kayla 7 stared at the tactical display showing human ships moving to assist damaged Zilani vessels. After years of studying extinct civilizations, she was witnessing something unprecedented, a species that traveled across the galaxy to fight for strangers. "Captain," she said quietly, "I think we just Found our saviors. Admiral Chen split her fleet with surgical precision. 20 ships remained at Nethka to defend the colony and establish first contact protocols, while the main battle group prepared to jump to Zella Prime. Intelligence reports showed the Vorthak massing their entire swarm for a final assault on the Zalani capital, over 300 bioships converging on a single world. Admiral, Dr. Harrison reported from the Xenobiology lab. Preliminary scans of the rescued Zalani are remarkable. Chen reviewed the medical data on her tablet. The aliens were even more fragile than initial estimates suggested. Light bone structure, minimal muscle mass, organs optimized for low-stress environments. They had evolved on a world without significant predators, extreme weather, or natural disasters. They're basically the opposite of humans, she mused. No wonder they can't fight the Vorthak effectively. On the research vessel Harmony's Edge, Kayla 7 prepared for her first direct meeting with a human. Commander Torres had volunteered to transfer over for face-to-face contact, despite warnings from both medical teams about potential biological incompatibilities. The docking tube connected with a soft hiss, and Kayla waited nervously in the reception chamber. When the airlock opened, she got her first look at a creature from a death world. Torres was shorter than expected, but built like a siege engine. His bones were clearly dense, his musculature designed for high-gravity environments. Scars crossed his hands and face, evidence of a lifetime spent in dangerous conditions. Most unsettling were his eyes, which seemed to constantly scan for threats even in the peaceful environment of the research ship. Commander Torres, Kayla said carefully. Welcome aboard the Harmony's Edge. I am Kayla 7, xenobiologist. Torres smiled, and Kayla was startled by how many teeth humans had. Sharp, efficient tools for eating. What? She made a mental note to research human dietary requirements. Pleasure to meet you, Kayla 7. I've got to say, your ship is incredible. Organic technology integrated with mechanical systems. We've never seen anything like it. They moved to the observation deck, where Torres studied the battle damage on his own vessel. The Persistence was a wreck by Zalani standards, but the human crew continued repairs in the vacuum of space, their work lights visible through the transparent hull. Commander? Kayla asked. How do your people survive working in vacuum? Our environmental suits would fail within minutes under those conditions. Torres looked puzzled. Those aren't full vacuum suits, just emergency gear for short EVA work. Humans can survive in space for a couple minutes without any protection at all, as long as you don't hold your breath. Kayla's 4 hearts skipped beats. That's impossible. Not impossible, just evolution. Earth is a harsh place. Extreme cold, toxic atmosphere pockets, radiation exposure from solar flares. You adapt, or you die. Torres gestured toward his crew. Every human grows up, knowing that the universe is trying to kill them. It makes us hard to kill in return. Over the next several hours, as the fleet prepared for the jump to Zella Prime, Kayla documented everything she could about human physiology and psychology. The results were terrifying and inspiring in equal measure. Human bones were 4 times denser than Zalani bone. Their muscle tissue could operate at efficiency levels that would cause system failure in most species. They had redundant organs, enhanced healing factors, and pain tolerance that defied medical understanding. But it was their psychological adaptation that truly amazed her. Humans expected danger. They planned for disasters. They treated survival as a puzzle to be solved rather than a fate to be accepted. Kayla, Torres said during one of their conversations, what you call Death World adaptation, we just call Tuesday. Earth taught us that everything wants to kill you, so you better be ready to kill it back. The philosophical implications staggered her. The Zalani had evolved to live in harmony with their environment. Humans had evolved to dominate theirs. Admiral Chen's voice echoed through both ships as the fleet prepared for hyperspace jump. All hands, this is Admiral Chen. Intelligence reports indicate the Vorthak are preparing for their final assault on Zella Prime. We're jumping into a system containing over 300 hostile bioships, each one larger than our biggest vessels. Chen paused, letting that sink in. Standard tactical doctrine says we're outnumbered and outgunned. Standard tactical doctrine assumes we're fighting a normal enemy. The Vorthak have never faced humans before. They've never encountered a species that treats impossible odds as a challenge rather than a death sentence. On the observation deck, Torres pointed to the stars ahead. You want to see something interesting, Kayla? Watch how humans respond to overwhelming force. The fleet jumped. They emerged in the Zella Prime system to find a nightmare scenario. Hundreds of bioships swarmed around the capital world, their harvester tendrils already beginning planetary consumption. The beautiful blue-green world was developing brown patches where entire continents were being stripped of life. But Chen had not come to fight conventionally. All ships, implement Deathworld protocol, she announced. Torres explained to a confused Keela. We're not going to fight their fleet ship to ship. We're going to do what humans do best, survive in conditions that would kill anything else, then strike from where they don't expect us. The human ships scattered throughout the system, deliberately taking damage from Vorthak bioplasma fire. To outside observers, it looked like suicide. But each damaged human vessel was actually implementing emergency protocols, sealing off sections, routing power through backup systems, preparing for extended operations in hostile environments. Colonel Ava Reyes led the first boarding action from the assault transport Leviathan. Her Marines wore minimal vacuum suits as they launched directly at a bioship's hull, using breaching charges to burn through the organic armor. Remember, Reyes told her troops over the comm, these things evolved to fight civilized species. They've never dealt with anything that evolved on a world that was actively trying to kill it. Show them what Earth made us into. The Marines disappeared into the bioship's interior, carrying portable atmosphere generators and emergency medical supplies. They were prepared to fight inside an alien organism that was part spaceship, part living creature, in an environment that would be instantly lethal to most galactic species. Meanwhile, Admiral Chen studied the tactical display from her command ship. The Vorthak were responding to the human attacks with confusion and growing desperation. Their bioships were taking damage they couldn't quickly heal, and their coordinated swarm behavior was breaking down as individual vessels tried to deal with borders they couldn't understand. Admiral, reported Commander Park, Colonel Reyes is transmitting from inside the bioship. She's located what appears to be a central nervous system cluster. Tell her to plant the charges and get out. Ma'am, she says she's not leaving until she finds the Queen ship's control center. She wants to capture one intact for intelligence purposes. Chen shook her head. Marines. They were all insane. It was what made them perfect for this job. The battle raged for 18 hours. Human ships operated far beyond normal safety parameters, their crews working in conditions that violated every spacefaring safety regulation ever written. But they held together through sheer, bloody-minded determination and the kind of engineering that assumed equipment would be pushed to its absolute limits. When the smoke cleared, 57 Vorthak bioships had been destroyed or captured. The remainder of the swarm fled toward the galactic rim, their coordination shattered by the loss of several command vessels. Zella Prime was saved. 8 billion Zelani lives had been preserved by 50 human ships, and their crews of Deathworld evolved warriors. But Chen knew this was just the beginning. The galaxy was vast, and somewhere out there more swarms waited in the dark. The final assault on the Vorthak Queen ship began at dawn on Zella Prime's longest day. Admiral Chen stood on the observation deck of the Indomitable, watching her battered fleet prepare for what military historians would later call the most desperate gambit in human warfare. Admiral, reported Dr. Harrison, analysis of the captured bioship confirms our theory. The Queen ship controls the entire swarm through bioneural links. If we can destroy it, the remaining Vorthak will become dormant. Chen nodded grimly. The Queen ship was a monster beyond imagination. 15 kilometers long, its organic hull pulsing with the accumulated life force of dozens of consumed worlds. It hung in the shadow of Zella Prime's largest moon, surrounded by the surviving bioships like antibodies protecting a vital organ. Colonel Reyes' status report on the boarding teams. Reyes's scarred face appeared on the communication screen. Behind her, Marine assault teams checked their equipment one final time. Each soldier wore the absolute minimum protective gear. Humanity's greatest advantage was their ability to survive in conditions that would kill other species. Marines are ready, Admiral. We've identified the Queen ship's atmospheric processors. If we can introduce Earth-standard toxins into their life support systems, it should disrupt their biological functions long enough for us to reach the command center. Earth-standard toxins. Chen almost smiled at the phrase. What humans considered normal atmospheric conditions, high oxygen content, trace elements that were poisonous to most galactic species, pressure levels that would crush delicate alien physiology, would be chemical warfare to the Vorthak. Commander Torres, Chen called to her tactical officer, initiate Protocol Lazarus. Across the human fleet, damage control teams began deliberately disabling their own ship's defensive systems. To any sane military commander, it would look like mass suicide. But Chen wasn't sane by galactic standards. She was human. The plan was simple in its insanity. The human ships would allow themselves to be severely damaged by Vorthak bioplasma fire, using the breaches in their hulls as entry points for boarding teams. While the bioships focused on finishing off the helpless human vessels, Marines would be cutting their way into the Queen ship's interior. All ships, this is Admiral Chen. In 60 seconds, we're going to show the galaxy what happens when you threaten someone under human protection. Remember, we're not just fighting for the Zilani. We're fighting for every peaceful species that will face this threat in the future. She paused, looking out at the stars. Earth made us into survivors. Today, we survive for everyone who can't survive for themselves. The fleet moved forward in formation. The Vorthak responded immediately, bioplasma cannons erupting in brilliant streams of destruction. Human ships staggered under the assault, their hulls torn open, atmosphere bleeding into space. But they kept coming. On the research vessel, Harmony's Edge Keela 7 watched in horrified fascination as human crew members worked to repair damage while their ships were still under fire. Some of them were operating in complete vacuum, using nothing but emergency breathing apparatus and hand tools to keep their vessels fighting. "How are they still alive?" whispered Dr. Moth 3. Keela consulted her growing database of human capabilities. Deathworld evolution. They can survive brief exposure to vacuum, extreme cold, and low oxygen conditions. What we're seeing is impossible by our standards, but normal by theirs. Commander Torres's voice crackled over the communication system as the Persistence took another devastating hit. "Boarding teams away. All Marines, remember, you're fighting for everyone who ever looked up at the stars and dreamed of peace." The human assault teams launched themselves directly at the Queen ship, using the chaos of battle to mask their approach. They wore minimal protection because heavy gear would slow them down. They carried basic weapons because human ingenuity was deadlier than any technology. Colonel Reyes led the primary assault team through a breach in the Queen ship's organic hull. Inside, the environment was a nightmare of biological systems and alien atmosphere. The air was thick with spores and chemical compounds that would have killed most galactic species within minutes. The Marines activated their emergency breathing systems and kept moving. "Jesus," muttered Sergeant Kim as they entered the ship's main nervous system chamber. "This whole thing is alive." The walls pulsed with bioelectric energy. Massive neural clusters hung from the ceiling like organic computers. In the center of the chamber, suspended in a bath of nutrient fluid, was the Queen ship's brain, a writhing mass of neural tissue the size of a building. There, Reyes pointed to a cluster of biomechanical interfaces. "That's the command nexus. Plant the charges there." As her Marines worked, Reyes studied the alien technology with professional interest. The Vorthak had achieved perfect biological integration, turning their entire species into a single organism. It was efficient. It was powerful. It was completely vulnerable to the kind of warfare humans specialized in. "Colonel," reported Private Martinez, "charges are set. But ma'am, this thing is trying to communicate with us." The neural mass had begun pulsing in complex patterns. Alien thoughts pressed against their minds, images of consumed worlds, absorbed civilizations, the hunger that drove the swarm across the galaxy. But there was something else. Pain, confusion, fear. For the first time in generations, the Vorthak Collective was experiencing genuine terror. They had encountered something that their programming couldn't understand or defeat. They were facing a species that treated their ultimate weapons as interesting challenges. "Colonel Reyes," Admiral Chen's voice came through the comm system. "Long-range sensors show more bioships jumping into the system. You need to finish this now." Reyes looked at the neural mass, then at her Marines. Good soldiers, every one of them. They had followed her into hell because someone needed to guard the gates. "You want to know what humans are?" she asked the alien. "Intelligence. We're what happens when a death world decides it needs protectors. We're what evolution creates when survival isn't good enough anymore." She activated the detonator. The explosion tore through the Queen ship's nervous system like a chainsaw through silk. The massive biovessel convulsed as its brain died, sending shockwaves through the neural links to every Vorthak ship in the system. One by one, the bioships went dark. Without the Queen ship's coordinating intelligence, they drifted in space like empty shells. The swarm that had consumed dozens of civilizations was reduced to biological debris. On Zella Prime, 8 billion Zilani looked up at their sky and saw the human fleet silhouetted against their sun, 50 battered ships that had traveled across the galaxy to save strangers. Admiral Chen received the formal surrender of the remaining Vorthak bioships 3 hours later. The few surviving specimens would be studied, their technology analyzed and countered. The threat to the galaxy had ended. Admiral, Kela 7 called from the Harmony's edge. Elder Thane Prime wishes to speak with you. The holographic image showed the Zilani leader surrounded by his people, all of them staring at Chen with something approaching religious awe. Admiral Chen, Thane Prime began, the Zilani Confederation offers you anything within our power, technology, resources, worlds. Name your price for what you have done. Chen considered the offer carefully. Humanity was still a young species, barely beginning to explore the galaxy. They could use allies, advanced technology, established trade, routes. Elder Thane Prime, she said finally, we don't want payment. We want partnership. The galaxy is a dangerous place, full of threats like the Vorthak. Peaceful species need protectors. We propose a mutual defense agreement. Humans provide military protection, Zilani provides scientific knowledge. The Elder's eyes widened. You would guard our borders? Protect our worlds? Not just yours. Any species that wants to live in peace. Earth taught us to survive. The galaxy is teaching us what survival is really for. 6 months later, Admiral Chen stood in the same observation deck, reading reports from across the galaxy. The news of humanity's victory over the Vorthak had spread, bringing requests for help from dozens of species facing various threats. Kela 7 had become humanity's first alien ambassador, helping other species understand the strange beings from the death world called Earth. Her reports described humans as accidentally perfect for galactic defense, evolved for warfare but motivated by protection. Admiral, Commander Torres approached with the latest intelligence briefing. We're receiving distress signals from the Andorian sector. Some kind of machine intelligence consuming stellar matter. The local species are requesting human assistance. Chen smiled. It never ended. The galaxy was vast and full of dangers, and somewhere out there peaceful species were looking to the stars for help. Prep the fleet, Commander. Looks like we have work to do. As the human ships prepared for another mission, Chen reflected on humanity's strange destiny. They had set out to explore the stars and found themselves becoming the galaxy's guardians. Earth had made them survivors, the universe had made them protectors. It was, she decided, a fair trade.